Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first day of kindergarten. Peninsula High School. We are so glad you're joining us for our first live performance in over a year.
To those of you tuning in online, we do have an audience in the house tonight. We ask that live audience members follow CDC guidelines, keeping a mask on and fully covering your nose and mouth, staying socially distant from other audience members, and all that jazz. Because of these restrictions, we ask that you do not leave the performance at any time. Even if you really have to pee, there will not be an intermission. However, in an emergency, the doors in the back of the auditorium are the most preferred and readily accessible exits.
To those in the house, you get a unique and special experience today. We have our crew and equipment in full view. Hopefully you've noticed. The crew will be communicating during the show and cameras might be in the way. Enjoy it as a behind-the-scenes look at the magic. In the front corners of the auditorium, you will find screens previewing the live stream feed. Please be respectful and aware of our technicians, crew members, and all filming equipment.
We also ask that you please turn off all cellular devices fully as they interview with our sound equipment and internet connection. What kindergartner has an iPhone anyways? Now that class rules are established and out of the way, we hope you enjoy today's class and welcome you to our performance of
All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten.
Ask a kindergarten class, how many of you can draw? And all hands shoot up. Me? What can you draw?
Anything.
How about a dog eating a fire truck in the jungle?
Sure, how big do you want it?
How many of you can sing? What can you sing?
Anything.
What if you don't know the words?
It's fine, we'll just make them all up.
How many of you can dance? What songs do you like to dance to?
Any of them. Let's dance.
Do you like to write poetry?
Yes.
Do you like to act in plays?
Yes.
Do you like to play musical instruments?
Yes.
Can you read and write and count?
Yes. We're learning that stuff right now.
Ask those same questions to a college audience. Now, some students might raise their hand and answer the questions, saying they can read and write and count or sing or dance or play a musical instrument. And those who do raise their hands will want to qualify their answers with limitations.
I play piano, but not very well. My mother made me.
I only dance to rock and roll.
I only sing in the shower.
I only draw conclusions.
When asked why the limitations, college students answer,
I don't have any talent. I haven't learned any of that stuff since 3rd grade.
Who's got the time?
That's not my major.
You can imagine asking the same questions to an even older audience.
Gotta go.
Gotta go.
You've got this, right?
No. What went wrong between kindergarten and now? What happened to yes, of course I can?
I've become so caught up in my grown-up stuff. It seems I've lost my spontaneity, not to mention perspective on living life. Every day, at my job and with my family. But I'm discovering all I really need to know, I learned in kindergarten.
All I really need to know, I learned in kindergarten.
About how to live.
What to do.
How to be.
It's the Sandbox Code of Ethics, not some high school mumbo-jumbo that's had the greatest impact on me. Wait, I want that.
No, it's mine.
Oh, wait.
I learned share.
Play fair.
Don't take things that don't belong to you.
Don't hit people.
If you hurt someone, say you're sorry.
Sorry.
To name just a few, clean up your own mess.
And wash your hands before you eat.
Beep, 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 beep.
Hold hands and stick together when you cross the street.
Flush, you can go. Live a balanced life. learn some, think some, work and play. And sing and dance and draw.
And take a nap each day.
Be
aware of wonder.
Think of the seed in the paper cup. Who knows why the root goes down and the plant goes up? But we're all like that. And just as the seed, the mouse, the bee, and the goldfish will all die someday, well, so will we. Remember the first word you learned in your Dick and Jane book? The biggest, most important word of all, look.
Everything you need to know is in there somewhere. From the golden rule to basic sanitation. Really, we've known these things all our lives. Living them? Well, that's another conversation.
Apply any of these items to your government, your home, your family life, or even your career. Translate them into sophisticated grown-up terms, and they will all hold true and firm and clear.
And what if we all stopped to take a nap each day? Think about how much better our world could be. Or what if cleaning up their own messes were a matter of a government's policy?
And it's still true when we go out into the world.
In these uncertain times, uncertain weather,
No matter if you're 6 years old or 60,
We should all hold hands and stick together.
Remember the first word you learned in your Dick and Jane book. The biggest, most important word of all, look.
look.
Oh.
Yeah.
Look. One more time.
Wait,
One more time.
yeah, wait. Look.
Cinderella was the title on the chalkboard marquee.
Given the task of dramatizing a fairy tale for a teacher's conference, the kindergarten class decided on the classic old rags to riches story,
Cinderella.
You know how it goes. Shy, agreeable protagonist, victimized by abusive step-parents, waits for wise matriarchal figure to save her and deliver her transform from codependency to bliss.
In other words, if you're good-looking, good at heart, and have a fairy godmother, you've got it made.
It was a good choice from the teacher's point of view because there were so many characters and every child in the class could be in the play.
A list of characters was compiled as the class talked through the plot of the drama.
There was the absolutely ravishing Cinderella.
and the evil stepmother,
The two wicked but stupid stepsisters.
The beautiful and wise fairy godmother.
The pumpkin.
Mice, coachman,
King.
All the people at the king's ball.
Generals,
admirals,
Knights.
princesses,
and of course, that ultimate object of fabled desire, the prince.
If you recall, the prince was really only a salesman interested in pushing his inventory of glass slippers.
The children were allowed to choose roles for themselves, and as parts were allotted, each child was labeled with felt pen and paper and sent to stand to the other side of the room. Finally, every child had a part?
Except one. One small boy who remained quiet and disengaged during the selection process. Norman, a kid who was somehow different. I mean, not weird, just different in the way he looked at things. Norman was always thinking, and like so many misunderstood but great thinkers, Norman was teased a lot by his classmates, causing him to live on the fringe of a kindergarten society.
Well, Norman, said the teacher, what are you going to be?
Well, I'm going to be the pig.
The pig? But there is no pig in the story of Cinderella.
Well, there is now.
Norman did not relate to being a footman or a soldier or a pumpkin.
He knew his character, Pig.
and he was not about to go over and stand against the wall where a loser would stand.
He intended to participate wherever pigs fit into the scheme of things, without losing dignity or identity. He took it for granted that there was a place for pigs and that the teacher would know that.
So what do you say to a kid who is already thinking up a costume of long pink underwear, pipe cleaner tail, and a paper cup for a nose?
So what did the teacher say to that moment?
Well, sometimes teachers talk more like fairy godmothers.
So be it.
Norn was declared the pig in the story of Cinderella.
It was quite fine with the rest of the class. Nobody else wanted to be the pig anyhow.
And since there was nothing in the script dictating what the pig was supposed to do, the action was left up to Norman himself. As it turns out, he gave himself one of the all-time best walk-on roles in the history of children's theater. He decided he was Cinderella's personal pig. Where she went, he went.
He made no noise, simply sat on his back haunches and observed what was going on, like a silently supportive Greek chorus.
The expressions on his face reflected the dramatic action, looking worried,
Sad,
Anxious,
hopeful,
puzzled.
mad,
bored,
Sick.
and pleased, as the moment required.
There was no doubt about what was going on, and no doubt that it was important.
One look at the pig, and you knew. He was so sincere, so earnest, so very there.
Norman created such dramatic tension that even those who knew how this story was supposed to end began to have doubts.
At the climax, when the prince placed the slipper on Cinderella's foot and the ecstatic couple hugged and rode happily ever after, Norman finally made his move. He went wild with joy, dancing around the stage on his back feet and barking like a dog.
In rehearsal, the teacher had tried explaining to Norman, even if there was a pig in the story of Cinderella, there is no such thing as a dancing, barking pig.
Well, there is now.
It's true, Norman. It's true. Knock 'em dead, pig.
The presentation at the teachers' conference was a smash hit.
When Norman danced his dance, the crowd of weary teachers laughed and wept and cheered.
Woo, yeah, Norman.
Woo!
That's my kid.
And later, when Norman stumbled out for his curtain call, the applause turned into a spontaneous standing ovation. Woo!
The teachers were able to see that the real Cinderella wasn't the little girl with the blonde hair and button nose, but Norman, the dancing, barking pig.
And they knew that the real fairy godmother was not the little girl waving her fairy wand, but the teacher, standing, weeping in the wings.
Kindergarten teachers know magic when they see it.
Well, the kindergarten class had many invitations to come perform their highly acclaimed production of Cinderella. And sometimes the teacher would have to explain what it was about their performance that was so unique.
It has a pig in it. You see?
Oh, really?
Yes, the star of the show is a dancing, barking pig.
But there is no dancing, barking pig in the story of Cinderella.
Well, there is now.
One dark October day, the neighborhood kids are playing hide and seek. How long since I've played hide and seek? A long time, but all I remember is I would be able to go up to a bunch of kids and just join their game if they invited me. But adults don't play hide and seek. Not for fun, anyway. Did you ever have that one kid that always hid too good that no one could ever find him? We did. He would go hide and we'd look for him, but eventually we'd just give up and leave him to rot wherever he was. And then he would come out and start yelling at us, telling us that we weren't playing the game right. There's hiding and there's finding. And we'd get mad at him saying that he wasn't playing the game right. Then he'd say, it's hide and seek, not hide and give up. And we'd just be going back and forth until we threatened him that we wouldn't play with him anymore until he got it straight. And then we played again, and he hid too good. He's probably still hiding now, for all I know. Today, the neighborhood kids are playing hide and seek.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Ready or not, here I come.
This one kid is hiding in the bushes under my window, and he's been there for quite some time. And the kids are about to give up on him and just go back to the base. Now, I thought about just going up to them and telling them where he was, and I also considered setting the leaves on fire. But finally, I just decided to yell, "Get found, kid!" It's hard to know how to help sometimes. There was once this man in my neighborhood who found out a year ago that he was being diagnosed with terminal cancer. And he was a doctor, so he knew a lot about death, and he didn't want to bring his family into suffering with him. So he kept it a secret. And he died. Everyone always talked about how brave he was to sit in his suffering alone in silence. But privately, his family was angry that he didn't trust their strength, that they didn't need him, and they were hurt that he hadn't said goodbye. He hid too good. Getting found would have kept him in the game. Hide and seek, grown-up style. Wanting to hide, needing to be sought, confused about being found. But a game I like better is called sardines. So someone's it, and they go and hide, and then everyone else is looking for them. And then, once someone finds them, instead of telling everyone where they are, they hide with them. And so sooner or later, everyone is in a little huddle together like a sack of puppies. And then someone giggles. And then someone laughs. Then everyone gets found!
Tag, you're it.
Hey! Tag, you're it!
Tag. Tag.
In the Solomon Islands, in the South Pacific, these villagers, they use this unique form of logging. If a tree is too big to be felled with an axe, the natives cut it down by yelling at it. I can't lay my hands on the article, but I swear I read it. Woodsmen with special powers creep up on a tree just at dawn, and suddenly they scream at the top of their lungs. And they do this for 35 days. The tree dies and falls over. The theory is that the hollering kills the spirit in the tree. According to the natives, it always works.
Me? I yell at my kids.
I yell at the telephone.
I yell at the lawnmower.
At traffic.
At the dog.
At machines.
Especially at machines. See, machines and relatives tend to get most of the yelling. Don't know what good it does, machines and things just sit there.
Even kicking doesn't always help.
According to people, well, as the Solomon Islanders say, yelling does tend to kill the spirit in living things.
True story.
True story.
True story. Larry Walters.
Our hero.
Walters is a truck driver, your average guy. He's sitting in his lawn chair in his backyard, wishing that he could fly.
For as long as he remembered, he wanted to go up, to be high in the air somehow, to ride the sky.
But there was no way he was ever going to fly a plane, and just hang gliding looked too dangerous.
So he spent his summer afternoons in his backyard in his old, ordinary aluminum lawn chair, the kind with webbing and rivets.
This next chapter takes place July 2nd, 1982, and appears on television and in newspapers across the country.
There's old Larry Walters up in the air over Los Angeles, flying at last.
Really getting up there.
Still sitting in his aluminum lawn chair, only now it's hooked up to 45 helium-filled surplus weather balloons.
He has a parachute on, a CB radio, a 6-pack of beer, some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and a BB gun to pop some of the balloons to come down.
But instead of being a couple hundred feet over his neighborhood, he shot up 11,000 feet, right through the approach corridor to the International Los Angeles Airport. This is a true story.
The human race sits in its chair, some saying there's none left to do.
And others that the human situation is hopeless.
Meanwhile, the Larry Walters of the world are busy tying balloons to their chairs.
When asked by the press why he did it, he said,
Well, he can't just sit there.
When asked if he was scared, he answered,
You bet.
When asked if he would do it again, he said,
Nope.
When asked, "Are you glad you did it?"
Are you glad you did it?
Are you glad you did it?
I grinned from ear to ear and I said, yes, 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 oh yes.
If the dream is held close to the heart,
And imagination is applied to what there is close at hand,
Everything is still possible.
I'm talking with a friend on the phone. She has a bad case of midwinter spiritual rot and eternal cold she's had since September.
Well, you don't ever get depressed, do you?
Are you kidding? There are times when I get so low it takes an extension ladder to climb out.
So, what do you do? I mean, what do you do?
No one's ever pinned me down quite like that before. You see, they normally ask what I think they should do. My solace is not religion or rum or yoga or even deep sleep. It's Beethoven. I put his Ninth Symphony on the stereo, pull the earphones down tight, and lay down on the floor. And the music, it comes on like the first day of creation. And then I think about old Mr. B, because he knew a whole lot about depression and unhappiness. He moved around from place to place, just trying to find the right place. He had a lousy love life. He quarreled with his friends all the time. All he wanted was to be a virtuoso pianist. He wanted to sing well too. But as life would have it, when he was still quite young, he began to lose his hearing, which, as you know, is usually bad news for pianists and singers. By 1818, when he was only 48 years old, he was stone cold deaf, which makes it all the more amazing that he completed his Ninth Symphony 5 years later. He never really heard it. He just thought it. So I lay there with my earphones on, wondering if it ever sounded to Beethoven the way it sounds in my head. The crescendo rises and my sternum starts to vibrate. And by the time the kettle drum rings out those big chords, boom, boom, I'm on my feet singing along in gibberish German with the mighty choir. And then I'm jumping up and down for the final moments of the coming of God and all his angels. Hallelujah, hallelujah, wahoo, kabang, Lord! Uplifted, exalted, excited, affirmed, and overwhelmed. Man alive. Out of all that sorrow and trouble, out of all that disappointment, out of that deep and permanent silence, came all that majesty and joy. He defied his fate with a jubilation. And I can't just sit around in my winter ash heap wringing my hands, feeling sorry for myself in the face of that music. Not does it only wipe out my spiritual rot, it probably cures a cold too. One night, one incredible December night, when I'm very rich, of course, I am going to rent me a grand hall with a mighty choir and a grand symphony orchestra. Stand on this podium and conduct the ninth. And I will personally play the kettle drum all the way through to the glorious end while simultaneously singing along at the top of my lungs. And in the awesome silence that follows, I will thank all of the gods that be for Ludwig van Beethoven, for his ninth, for his light. Man alive!
The knock on the door was sharp, urgent, insistent, a foreboding of danger. Me rushing to the door, fumbling with the lock, adrenaline pumping, expecting an emergency. A small boy, odd expression, hands me a much folded piece of scrolled up paper. Hi, my name is Donnie. I will rake your leaves, $1 a yard. I am deaf. You can write to me, I can read. I rake good. Now, behind our house is this tall row of matronly maple trees, decked out in a million leaf sequins. And in the season, the sequins fall about the feet of these matrons, like dressing gowns they've just stepped out of in the preparation for the bath of winter. And me, why, I like the way it looks. I like the way it looks very much.
His wife does not. The gardening magazine does not like it either. Leaves are not good for grass. Leaves should be raked. Leaves are unclean, moldy, slimy.
There is a reason for leaves. There is no reason for mowed grass, so say I.
His wife does not see it this way.
There is an unspoken accusation in the air of laziness.
We have been through this before.
But this year, a bargain has been struck in the name of the scientific method.
Half of the yard will be properly raked.
And the other half will be left in the care of nature.
And so my half is raked.
And mine is not. Come summer, we shall see.
We will.
Yes, we will. In a way, the trees are there because of the leaves. Zillions of seeds helicopter out of the sky to green the earth, and the leaves follow to protect and nourish the next generation of trees. But stony ground, rot, bugs, bacteria, birds, and people all interfere. And somehow, some tenacious seeds hold on, and they make it to become the next generation of trees. This process has been going on for generations, and we mess with this process at our own peril, say I. This is important. My name is Donnie. I will rake your leaves, $1 a yard. I am deaf. You can write to me, I can read. I rake good. He holds out the paper and pencil with patience, hope, and goodwill. How can I explain the importance of my scientific experiment to this child? He turns to go, and quickly I grab the paper and pencil and I write, "Yes, I would like you to rake my leaves." There's a grave nod from this attentive businessman child. Do you rake them when they are wet? Yes. Do you have your own rake? No. This is a big yard. I think I should give you $2. 3. We have a contract, and Donnie the leaf raker goes to work in the fast-falling November twilight. He rakes in silence, and in silence, I watch him out of the window of our dark house. Are there any sounds in his mind? I wonder. He rakes the leaves into a large pile as instructed. Of course, I will spread the leaves back over the yard, for I am stubborn about this. But he goes back over the yard and picks up the missed leaves by hand. He is stubborn about his values. Raking the leaves means all the leaves. Well, he signs to me that it is getting dark and that he must go home to eat, and he leaves the work unfinished. Having paid him in advance, I wonder if he will return to finish the job. In my old age, I am getting cynical. And yet, come morning, there he is, back at work. And after many hours of much meticulous, hard work, the yard is leaf-free. I see him stoop down and grab a whole bunch of the brightest yellow leaves and a good handful of helicoptered seeds and stuff them in the pocket of his sweatshirt. And then he comes to the door and signs that the work is done. And as he heads up the street, I see him tossing one helicoptered seed into the air after another. A fringe benefit. Standing in silence in my doorway, smiling at his grace. A fringe benefit. Tomorrow, I will go out and I will push that pile of leaves. I will push that pile of leaves over the embankment into the ravine behind our house, and I will do it in silence. I wouldn't have the heart to undo all of his hard work. My scientific experiment will just have to wait for something more human. After all, the trees have let go. The leaves have let go. And now it is time for me to let go and cast my lot with this child, who, much like the seeds and trees, he is another one of nature's tenacious survivors. Hold on, Donnie. Hold on.
After the dishes are washed and the sink rinsed out, there remains in the strainer at the bottom of the sink what I will call momentarily some stuff. Now, any rational, intelligent, objective person would say that this stuff is simply a mixture of food particles too big to go down the drain, composed of carbohydrates, bits of protein, fats, and fiber.
Dinner dandruff.
Furthermore, the person might add that this stuff was first sterilized through the high heats of cooking and further sanitized by going through the detergent and hot water of the dishpan and rinsed.
No problem.
Okay, but any teenager who has been forced into washing the dishes knows that this explanation is a lie.
That stuff in the bottom of the strainer is toxic waste.
Deadly poison.
A danger to health.
In other words, it's about enough to make you hurl.
Oh, please. Your mom deals with this stuff all the time.
Okay, one of the very few reasons I have any respect for my mother at all is because she reaches into the sink with her bare hands, and picks up that lethal gunk and drops it into the garbage. To top that, I once saw her reach into the wet garbage bag, fishing around in there looking for a lost teaspoon, barehanded. A kind of unbelievable courage. She found the teaspoon in a clump of coffee grounds mixed with chicken fat and scrambled eggs. I almost passed out when she gave it to me to wash.
One time in French class, we learned the word order. When my teacher told me it meant unspeakable filth, I knew exactly what she was referring to. I see it every night in the bottom of the sink. One night at dishwashing time, I told my mom that we have hors d'oeuvre in our sink. Well, she gave me my daughter's a complete idiot look, and then explained to me that the dinner I had just eaten was in my stomach in about the same condition, rotting.
No matter what my mother thinks, I know that stuff in the sink strainer is lethal and septic. It could give you leprosy or something worse. And if you should ever accidentally touch it, you must never touch any other part of your body until you have rinsed and scalded and soaped. Even worse, I know that stuff can congeal and mush up and mutate into some living thing that can crawl out of the sink and into your house at night.
Boom!
Come to think of it, my father never came closer than 3 feet to the sink in his life. My mother called him lazy, but I knew that he knew what I knew about the gunk. I told him once, I bet Jesus never had to wash the dishes or clean the sink strainer. He agreed. It was the only theological conversation we ever had.
Imagine asking questions to a high school audience. The speaker addresses the students and asks,
how many of you would like to be adults, independent on your own citizens?
Now, all hands would go up with some enthusiasm. The speaker would then give them this list of things that grown-ups do.
Clean the sink strainer.
Plunge out the toilet.
Clean up babies when they poop and pee.
Wipe up runny noses and clean up the floor when the baby throws up strained spinach.
Empty the kitty litter, scrape up dog doo.
Bury dead pets when they get run over in the street.
When you can do these things, then you will be adults.
Now, some of the students may not want to go on at this point, but they may as well face the truth.
Being an adult is dirty work.
But someone has to do it.
Summer of 1959, at the Feather River Inn near the town of Blairsden, in the Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California. A resort community, and I, just out of college, have a job that combines being the night desk clerk at the lodge and helping with the horse wrangling in the stables. The owner and manager is an Italian Swiss with European notions on conditions of employment. He and I do not get along. I think he's a fascist who wants peasant employees who know their place, and he thinks I'm a perfect example of how democracy can be carried too far. One week, the employees had been served the same thing for lunch every single day. 2 wieners, a mound of sauerkraut, and stale rolls. To compound insult from injury, the cost of the meals was deducted from our checks. I was outraged.
Oh, that tears it. I quit.
On Friday night of that awful week, I was at my desk job around 11 when the night auditor, Sigmund Woolman, came on duty. I decided to get a bite to eat and found a note to the chef to the effect that wieners and sauerkraut were on the employee menu for 2 more days.
Oh, I double quit now. This is...
For want of any better audience, I unloaded on Sigmund Woolman.
I have had it up to here. I am going to find a plate of wieners and sauerkraut. I'm going to wake up the owner, and I'm going to shove it in his face. Who does he think he is anyhow? How can life be sustained on wieners and sauerkraut? This is un-American, and I don't like wieners and sauerkraut enough to eat it for 1 day, let alone a whole week. And the whole hotel stinks, and the horses are all nags, and the guests, they're just idiots. And I'm gonna pack my bags, and I'm gonna go to Montana, where they never heard of wieners and sauerkraut, and they wouldn't feed that stuff to pigs.
Something like that. I raved on for 20 minutes, and I needn't repeat it all here. My monologue was delivered at the top of my lungs, punctuated by blows.
Blows on the front desk.
The kicking of chairs.
And much profanity.
A call to arms.
Freedom, unions, uprisings, and the breaking of chains for the working masses.
As I pitched my fit, Sigmund Woolman watched me with sorrowful eyes. Put a bloodhound in a suit, and you have Sigmund Woolman. He's got reason to look sorrowful. Survivor of Auschwitz, 3 years, German Jew. He liked being alone at the night desk. It gave him intellectual space, gave him peace and quiet. And even more than that, he could go into the kitchen to get a bite to eat whenever he wanted. All the wieners and sauerkraut he could ever dream of. To him, a feast. Yeah, it was a feast.
You know what?
In Auschwitz, he'd dreamed of such a time where he could have such peace and quiet. And the only person he sees at night is me, the nightly disturber of his dreams. Our shifts overlap for 1 hour, and here I am again, a one-man war party at full cry.
Are you finished?
No. Why?
Listen to me. You know what's wrong with you? It's not wieners and sauerkraut. It's not the boss. It's not the chef, and it's not this job.
What's wrong with me?
You think you know everything, but you don't know the difference between a problem and an inconvenience. If you break your neck, if you have nothing to eat, if your house is on fire, you got a problem. Everything else is just an inconvenience. Life is inconvenient. Life is lumpy. You'll learn to know the difference between a problem and inconvenience. You'll live longer and you won't annoy people like me so much. Good night.
Wait.
There, in the late night darkness of the Feather River Inn, Sigmund Woolman simultaneously kicked my butt and opened a window in my mind. Problem or inconvenience? I call this the Woolman test of reality. Life is lumpy. But a lump in the oatmeal, a lump in the throat, and a lump in the chest are not the same lump. And we should learn to know the difference. Good night, Sig.
Life was crumbling. I kicked and screamed, and he looked my way with pity in his eyes, much to my surprise. He spoke. He said there was a man just like you, living his life and going to school. He had his days, his girl just left, and he thought his world might end. Boy, let me tell you of life's inconveniences. You need to understand why they're small. Life is lumpy, life is inconvenient. The truth is, problems outweigh them all. Now this man, so small and frail, without his girl, all he did was pray for her. He prayed every night until one night he prayed for his life, forced to flee, forced to run away. Now this problem wiped his cares away. You will face many things in life. Learn the lesson from the man. Hurt and hunger caused by hate taught him life can be taken away. So boy, let me tell you of life's inconvenience. You need to know why they're small. Life is lumpy, life is inconvenient, but don't let them make you fall.
This is my neighbor. Nice lady. Coming out her front door on her way to work in her looking good mode. She's locking her door now and picking up her daily baggage. You know, purse, lunch bag, gym bag for aerobics. Oh, and the garbage bucket to take out. She turns, sees me, gives me the big smiling,
hello,
takes 3 steps across the front porch and goes, That's a direct quote. At about the level of a fire engine at full cry, spiderweb. She has walked full force into a spiderweb. And of course, the pressing question now is,
where is that spider now?
She flings her baggage in all directions, and at the same time does a high-kick jitterbug sort of dance, looking like a crazed stork in heat. She clutches at her face and hair and tries opening the door without unlocking it. She tries again, and she breaks off the key in the lock. She then runs around the back of the house with the Doppler effect of,
Now a different view of this scene. This is the spider. She's been up since before dawn working on her web, and all is well.
Good day, no wind, dew point just about right to keep things sticky.
She's just checking the moorings and thinking about the nap she'll have for breakfast until suddenly all hell breaks loose. Wind, earthquake, tornado, volcano. Everything is ruined. This thing has just come in and wrecked her web, and the seemingly raw, painted piece of meat is making a sound that she has never heard before.
She's moving way too fast to save for later, and she's way too big to hold down.
Do we jump for it? Hang on and hope? Dig in?
Human being.
She has caught a human being. And now the only pressing question is,
what is she doing? And what is she gonna do when she gets there?
The neighbor lady thinks that this spider is about the size of a lobster, with rubber fangs and poisonous fangs. The neighbor lady will probably strip down to the skin and take a full shower just to make sure that the spider is gone. The neighbor lady will then put on a full new outfit just to make sure she is not inhabited.
As for the spider, well, if she survives, she will have a great story to tell.
The one that got away was this big.
There's a song about spiders. Everybody knows it.
The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again.
What's the deal here? Why does everybody know this song, and why do we keep passing it on from generation to generation, especially considering it puts the spider in such a favorable light? I mean, out of all the times that you've ever heard it sung, have you heard it go?
The itsy bitsy spider.
No. Maybe it's because it puts the life adventure in such clear and simple terms. Humans have been dealing with disasters and catastrophes for a long time. We tell our kids about it. And maybe spiders tell their kids about it too, in their spider sort of way. The small creature is alive and looks for adventure. Here's the drain pipe, a long tunnel going towards some light. The spider doesn't even think about it, just goes. Disaster befalls it, rain, flood, powerful forces. And the spider is knocked back far beyond where he started. Does he say,
"Ah, to heck with it"?
No. The sun comes out, clears out the sky, dries things off, and the spider looks up and wonders.
I want to know what's up there.
But he's a bit wiser now. Checks the sky first, looks for better toe holds, says a spider prayer, and ventures on up to mystery toward the light.
Of smooth gray granite. And having checked with a compass to be certain, I can tell you that this bench has been carefully placed so that the long ends face east and west, and the short ends point north and south. This sturdy seat has been placed with purpose on the highest ground of the highest hill in the city, so that when the sky is clear on a summer's morning, you can see almost 60 miles in 3 directions. This bench is, in fact, a tombstone in a cemetery. And I would take you there to sit if I could. You wouldn't feel uncomfortable sitting on it, I promise. You wouldn't even notice what it was at first. It's right on the edge of a paved lane that curves to the burial grounds, so that you are clearly invited to use it. The placement of the bench, the consciousness of the view, all say that someone went to a lot of trouble to be useful in death. A parting gesture of quiet generosity has been made. Funerals have a certain narcissism to them, a focus on self, what I want for my funeral and what I want for my epitaph, a very human holding on to identity for as long as breath and granite last. But to me, tombstones are markers of loneliness. But this bench is a different story, unique. First of all, there's no name inscribed on it, no conventional epitaph, no dates, just an open invitation to sit and think. What marks this grave is the gift of silent companionship that bridges loneliness. And this bench has become a spiritual retreat for me over the years, and I know that I'm not the only one to use it, because once I found a note taped under the bench. Not for me, for a young woman from a young man who was in love with her and wrote her careless poetry with great passion. And no, I'm not sorry I snooped. And yes, I put it back as I found it. And no, I didn't hide in the bushes and wait and see who came for the note. Secret lovers have enough problems as it is. But it was on this bench, the morning after one of those milestone birthdays, that I came to the moment of when one crosses over from the abstract intellectual knowledge that all human beings die, to the active realization that I will die. Me. I will not be, sooner or later. And not only did I realize that I would die, but I walked away thinking, well, it's okay. I connect that moment of enlightenment with the peculiar sanctuary of that bench and whoever provided it. This bench will last hundreds of years. Many people will sit on it and think, not of the name of its owner, but of the nameless joys of this sweet life, and the mysteries of death, and how utterly amazing it all is, and that somehow, sometimes, things are just as they should be.
Uh-oh!
Yikes.
Huh?
Huh?
Yikes!
Whoa.
Yikes! Uh-oh!
Ouch.
Oops.
Yikes!
Huh?
Whoa.
Ick! Uh-oh!
Ouch.
Oops.
Yikes!
Huh?
Whoa.
Ick! Uh-oh!
Uh-oh
Ouch.
isn't in a
Oops.
dictionary.
Yikes.
I mean, you hardly ever even see it on
Whoa.
a page.
Ick!
Yet,
Uh-oh.
it's still a part of our
Ouch.
vocabulary.
Yikes!
And it has been since
Whoa.
the diaper
Ick!
age.
Uh-oh!
Millions and millions of sounds have come and gone as we keep reaching for ways to
Whoa.
communicate
Ick!
with one another,
Uh-oh!
creating this
Oops.
symphony of short syllables
Ugh.
that represent
Whoa.
our complex thoughts
Uh-oh!
and ideas.
Oops.
Yikes!
Huh?
Ugh!
Whoa.
Ick! Uh-oh!
Ouch.
Oops.
Yikes!
Huh?
Ugh!
Whoa.
Ick!
Most weddings are such comedies. Not that they're intended to be, but weddings are high-state occasions involving amateurs under pressure, meaning everything never goes right.
The central figure of this drama is the mother of the bride.
The
MOTB.
Not the groom or bride or minister. Mother. Generally a polite, reasonable, intelligent, and sane human being.
Mother was mentally unhinged by the announcement of her daughter's betrothal.
Not to say she was unhappy, as is often the case. To the contrary, she was overcome with joy.
And just about succeeded in overcoming everybody else with her joy.
Nobody knew it, but this lady had been waiting with a script for a production that would have met with Cecil B. DeMille, a royal wedding fit for a princess bride.
The father of the bride began to pray for an elopement.
She had 7 long months to plan, and no detail was left to chance or human error. Anything that could be engraved was engraved. There were tea
and showers
and dinners.
An 18-piece brass and wind orchestra was assembled.
The groom and the bride, they met with the minister only 3 times.
She was in and out of his office more than the cleaning lady.
Not only were the bridesmaid dresses made to order,
but the groom and his men had suits that were bought, not rented.
And if all that wasn't enough, the ring was returned to the jeweler for a larger stone.
Quietly subsidized by the MOTB.
When I say unhinged, I mean unhinged.
The juggernaut of fate rolled down the road, and the final hour came.
Guests in formal attire packed the church.
enough candles were lit to bring daylight back to the evening.
From the choir loft, the orchestra gushed great music. The MOTB coasted down the aisle with the grandeur of an opera diva at a premiere performance. Never did she take her seat with such satisfaction. She had done it.
She glowed.
Beamed.
Smiled and sighed.
The music softened, and 9, count them, 9 chiffon-draped bridesmaids lockstep down the long aisle.
While the groom and his men marched into place.
Finally, the wedding march thundered from the orchestra. Here comes the bride.
Preceded by 4 enthusiastic mini princesses chunking flower petals.
And 2 munchkin ring bearers, 1 for each ring.
The congregation rose in anticipation.
Ah, the bride.
She had been dressed for hours, if not days. No adrenaline was left in her body.
Left alone with her father in the reception hall of the church, while the march of the maidens went on and on, the bride walked along the tables filled with gourmet goodies and absent-mindedly sampled first the little pink and yellow and green mints,
Then she picked through the silver bowls of mixed nuts and ate only the pecans.
Followed by a cheese ball or two.
Some black olives.
A handful of glazed almonds.
A little sausage with a frilly toothpick stuck in it.
A couple of shrimps blanketed in bacon.
And cracker piled with liver pate.
To wash this all down, a glass of pink champagne. Her father gave it to her to calm her nerves.
The first thing you noticed about the bride as she stood in the doorway was not her dress, but her face. Pure white.
For what was coming down the aisle was a living grenade with the pin pulled out.
The bride threw up. Blech.
Just as she walked by her mother.
And by threw up, we don't mean a polite little lady like Earp into a handkerchief.
She puked.
There's just no nice way to say it. She hosed the front of the chancel.
Hitting 2 bridesmaids.
A ring bearer.
And the minister.
I'm quite sure of the details. We have it all on videotape.
3 cameras worth.
The MOTB had thought of everything.
Having disgorged her hors d'oeuvres, champagne,
and the last of her dignity, the bride went limp in her father's arms.
While the groom sat where he had been standing, too stunned to function.
And the mother of the bride moaned, slumped over, and passed out cold.
There was a fire drill there at the front of the church that not only the Marx brothers could have topped.
Groomsmen rushed about heroically.
Many princess flower girls squealed.
Bridesmaids sobbed.
And people with weak stomachs headed for the exits. The smell of fresh wretch drifted across the church.
Only 2 people were seen smiling. One was the mother of the groom.
And the other was the father of the bride.
Well, what happened next? We all went back to real life.
Guests were invited to adjourn in the reception hall.
Though they did not eat or drink as much as they might have under different circumstances.
The bride was consoled, cleaned up, fitted out in a bridesmaid's dress.
And hugged and kissed a lot by the groom.
She'll always love him for that.
When he said for better or worse, he meant it.
The cast was reassembled where we left off. A single flute played a quiet air. The words were said and the deed was done.
Everybody cried.
As people are supposed to do at weddings.
Mostly because the groom held the bride in his arms throughout the entire ceremony.
And no groom ever held a bride more tenderly than he.
If one could hope for a wedding that it be memorable, then theirs was a raging success.
Nobody who was there will ever forget it.
They lived as happily ever after, as anyone does.
Happier than most, in fact.
They have been married 12 years now and have 3 lively children.
But that's not the end of the story. On the 10th anniversary of this disastrous affair, a party was held.
Ding
Ding
dong!
dong! A feast was laid, best friends invited.
And 3 TV sets were mustered.
Remember, there were 3 video cameras at the scene of the accident.
All 3 cameras were shown at once.
The effect was pretty interesting.
Especially with the running commentary.
And the stop action stuff, which is a little gross when seen 1 frame at a time.
Uh-oh.
Ouch.
Ugh.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Ew!
Oh.
Ick.
Oh.
Ew!
The highlight of the evening, and the part where everybody clapped, was when the cameraman zoomed in on the face of the father of the bride, smiling as he contemplates his wife being revived.
I really like this part. Now, I really like this part of the story. Not because of the party, but because of who organized it.
Of course, the infamous MOTB.
The mother of the bride is still at it.
Although she's a lot looser these days.
She not only forgave her husband and everybody else who was a part of the debacle, she forgave herself.
And nobody smiled as much as at the cameras as she.
There's a word for what she has. Grace.
And that's why that same grinning man has been married to her for 40 years.
And why her daughter loves her still.
This is 1963. From deep in the canyon aisles of a supermarket comes what sounds like a small-scale bus wreck, followed by an air raid.
If you followed the running box boy armed with mop and broom, you would come upon a young father,
his 3-year-old son, an upturned shopping cart, and a good part of the pickle shelf, all in a heap on the floor. The child,
who is not hurt in any way,
sits in a small lake of pickle juice and is experiencing what might nicely be described as
significant fluid loss.
Tears mixed with mucus from a runny nose, mixed with blood from a small forehead abrasion, mixed with saliva drooling from a mouth that is wide open.
And making a noise that would drive a dog under a bed. The father has remained amazingly quiet and still through this whole ordeal. The father is so calm because he is thinking about running away. Just turning around, walking out of the aisle, getting in his car, driving to California, getting a job as a local paperboy or a cook in an all-night diner. Because nobody knows this is his kid, starting a new life. He could not have to deal with 3-year-olds ever again.
Oh, sure. Someday he may find this all amusing. But the most private part of his heart, he is sorry he has children, sorry he grew up, sorry he married, and above all, sorry that this particular son cannot be traded in for a model that works.
He will not and cannot say these things to anybody, ever. But they are there. They are real. And they are not funny. Here.
Later, the father sits in his car in the parking lot, holding the sobbing child in his arms until he falls asleep. Then he drives home, carries him up to his crib, and tucks him in.
The father sits and looks at the sleeping child for a long while. The father does not run away.
This is 1976.
The same father paces his living room.
In his hands is what's left of a letter, crumpled into a ball and uncrumpled again. The letter is from his 16-year-old son, the same son from the pickle juice.
The pride of his father's eye, or was, till today's mail.
See, now it is the tables have turned. The son is running away from home. He says that he hates his father, and he wishes he never had one. He says that the father is a jerk and a failure as a parent, and he ends with, "You can drop dead for all I care."
The father is shouting at the ceiling, "Why me? Why me?"
Well, the answer is simple. He has a son, and the son is 16. Stuff gets said.
Someday, some long day from now, he may laugh about even this. But for now, there's only anguish. This is 1988. Same father,
same son.
And they're still running, out jogging at 6 a.m.
The son is 28 now, married with his own 3-year-old son.
The father is 68. As they run up the hill and across the street, the son braces the father's chest.
To hold him back from the dangers of oncoming traffic. You can hear them laugh as they run up the hill into the morning. And when they sprint towards home, the son does not run ahead,
but runs alongside at his father's pace.
They love each other a lot. You can see that. They've been through a lot together, so they work to take care of their love.
Oh, sure. There will be times when they're mad at each other.
And there'll be times when they love each other.
But one of their favorite stories will always be Once Upon a Time in a Supermarket.
Hot afternoon in mid-July. Newspaper headline reads, Power shortage in Grand Junction.
In the men's room of the local airport passenger terminal, another kind of power problem is in progress. From behind the stall door comes,
No, no, no! I won't.
Followed by,
Please do it for Daddy.
No.
The 7 men using the facilities turn their faces in unison toward the stall door.
2 pairs of feet can be seen from underneath the stall door.
A large pair in polished brown cowboy boots,
and another much smaller pair in patent leather shoes.
The encounter continues.
Look, I know you have to go. You go every day. If you don't go now, you'll have to go when we're standing in line or when we're strapped into our seats, when we're 35,000 feet in the air. It's a small plane with no potty, and you'll probably mess your pants. And we'll have to clean you up when we're way up there. You don't want to have to do that, and I don't want to have to do that. So why don't you just go now like a good girl?
No. This is a boy's place.
I know, but Daddy can't go into the girls' room.
No.
What will Mommy and Grandma say when we get off the plane and you're crying and I'm mad? They won't be glad to see us.
Yes, they will.
We're going to miss our plane if you don't go now.
I don't care.
Am I going to have to spank you?
No.
Then please at least try.
No.
If you go, I'll buy you an ice cream.
No.
Okay, then I will buy you a present and you can pick it.
No.
I will give you $1. $1.
$1?
Yes, $1. I have one right here.
No.
Please try, just as a favor to Daddy.
No.
Well, by God, you've just got to do it. That's all there is to it. You're going to sit on that pot until something happens. You little brat, get back on that potty and go to the bathroom right now.
The stall door swings open. A 5-year-old girl emerges in tears, her lips puckered in fierce refusal and her mind set in cement as she marches solemnly past the onlookers and out the door.
Her father follows, big man in the black Stetson. No one pushes him around. Nobody tells him no.
But his 5-year-old girl child has done it, and she has not done her business. There's going to be trouble in the air and a fracas when they get to Denver.
The impromptu committee of wise men who have just witnessed this drama and who now remain in the sudden quiet of the men's John render their judgments.
Sure glad I ain't his shoes.
That kid's gonna explode at 35,000 feet.
Women don't know what's worse, the big ones or the little ones.
If it had been me, I would have given her all the presents she could carry, a banana split, $1,000, and a U.S. savings bond before I would have gotten on that plane with her.
Later, the man and his child returned to the men's room in a big hurry. This time, she had to go. They missed the plane.
Father and daughter will survive this ordeal. Time will turn it into a legend. It's the kind of story a father saves for his daughter's wedding rehearsal. And it'll be funny with the embellishments fathers are bound to add in, and this time around, it is she who will be embarrassed.
But the father will make it clear, as fathers sometimes do, that he is proud of his strong, independent-minded child, always has been, and that the groom had better understand that he is marrying a strong woman who has been thinking for herself for a long time.
there are certain clues that my life is entering a new stage. My children are beginning to look middle-aged, and they pat me right on the head in a very patronizing manner for no apparent reason. I'm not going to ask them why they pat me. I'll take any affection I can get from them any way they want to dish it out, which in this case is. But another clue of change is the sudden urge to take small children on excursions. My granddaughter Sarah and I went on one of these excursions that sounds like the title of a crappy B-grade children's story. Grandfather and granddaughter go to the zoo for the first time. And oh, we saw everything. We saw the lions, the tigers, the bears. Oh my, we saw the elephants, the gorillas, every last living creature this zoo had to offer, and even some possibly dead ones. But for all my, oh, Sarah, look at those gorillas. Aren't they cute? Sarah was most interested in the dirty pigeons that hung around the concession stand. Pigeons! Now, the reason that she seemed to like these pigeons was that she could almost reach them, but not quite. No matter how carefully, cautiously, or quietly she approached, they were always just one small step further out of reach. The space between her and these pigeons moved in concert, and she spent most of her time at this zoo trying to close this ever-moving space. All the other animals, they were over there. They were behind bars, cages, moats. They were in their own world, but those pigeons, dang pigeons, they were over here. They were in Sarah's world, and they would be made even more real if she could just get her hands on one. Well, Sarah, what are you going to do if you ever actually catch a pigeon? She didn't know. Possession was not a part of her plan. It was just reaching for the pigeons. That was all that mattered to her. Driving home in a thunderstorm, and Sarah falls asleep in the back seat. In her parents' driveway, I sit and look at her for a while. Who is this child? I wonder. I want to know her. Now that I am older and wiser and have more time and patience than I did as a father, I will approach Sarah as she approaches the pigeons. Carefully, cautiously, quietly. And I will wonder as she does how one can be so close and yet so forever far at the same time. There are 2 people right now who think of her as their daughter, and 4 people who think of her as their granddaughter. But Sarah belongs only to herself. She is not mine, and she never will be. There is this space between us all as people. There's this untraversable distance that must be treated with respect because it is present and it is there. And just as Sarah doesn't know what she would do if she ever actually caught a pigeon, I don't know what I'd do if I ever actually caught Sarah. To love something and to possess it are not the same thing.
When I was a kid,
do you do?
What do you do? Your basic ask a stranger on a plane question.
Comes up at the PTA meeting.
And corporate cocktail parties.
And just about any stand around and make small talk conversation you get into.
You ask what you're paid to do, and then we know who you are and how to deal with you.
What do you do?
I'm a prince.
A prince?
Yeah, just this morning my wife said, "Sometimes you're a real prince." And I've been feeling pretty princely ever since.
What do you do?
I'm a singer. Not only do I get paid to sing, but in some cases, friends might offer to pay me not to sing. Nevertheless, I love to do it. In the shower, driving to work, at work, whenever. I sing. It's what I do. And I loved it when my children were young. We'd sing all the time. And it didn't matter if we didn't know all the words or didn't have the tune just right, because we made it up. We singers are not thrown by technicalities. Singers are those who sing, period.
What do you do?
Marcel Duchamp, the sculptor and painter in the fixture before 1940, despised the implication of the question, "What do you do?" He would say, "Je suis un respirateur," which means he's a breather. He would argue that he breathes more than anything else, and he's very, very good at it too. And then people were afraid to ask what else he did.
What I do is more than just a job title. It is literally how I spend my time. In my life, I figure I've spent 2,500 hours just brushing my teeth.
35,000 hours in traffic.
35,000 hours eating.
217,000 hours at work.
870,000 hours just coping with odds and ends.
Filling out forms.
Paying bills.
Getting dressed and undressed.
Being sick.
When you get done with all the arithmetic, there's not a lot of time left.
And somehow, in the middle of all of it, you have to make time for the good stuff.
Making a living and having a life are not the same thing.
The usual morning lineup. Starting the chores and sweep till the floors all clean. Polish and wax, do laundry and mop and china. Sweep again, and by then it's like 7:15, and so I'll read a book, or maybe 2 or 3. I'll add a few new paintings to my gallery. I'll play guitar and knit and cook, and basically wonder when will my life begin.
The most time-bound man I know lives in my neighborhood. He's always in a hurry and always late. Always harassed and fuzzed out. I'm not exactly sure what he does for a living, but it seems to involve buying and selling something downtown.
He is a businessman.
His choice of appropriate transportation is a brand new Range Rover, a vehicle built by the British made for the high adventures in the wilds of Africa. It is equally capable in steep canyons, quicksand, and blizzard conditions. It can outrun a lion and take a rhino charge head-on. This particular Veltmobile is equipped with a winch, a gun rack, a CB radio.
As well as an impressive stereo system, 2 cellular devices for calling and texting, a fax machine, and
and a coffee maker in the glove compartment. Daily, I see my neighbor rushing out of his house burdened with the impediments of high adventure, carrying a golf bag, gym bag, lunch bag, raincoat, umbrella, coffee, sack of garbage for the dumpster.
and his briefcase.
about the briefcase. It is made of the purest, unblemished belting leather, made by the hides of 4 carefully select cows who gave their lives might he carry this talisman of success.
It has solid brass fittings, a combination lock.
And his name embossed in gold. So, it's a Tuesday morning around 7 o'clock on a fine day in June. A neighbor lady and I hit the street around the same time.
She's a social worker for the Episcopal Church.
And drives an 8-year-old, just get me there and back, please, God, sedan. And I drive a 1952 GMC, go ahead and hit me, pickup truck. At the same time, the owner of the Range Rover pulls up.
His mind is leveraged to the max, and he is currently in 3 continents at once. He is in no mood for small talk.
He grunts his lorry for the expedition downtown and cranks the mighty engine like he's on the Indianapolis 500. Uh-oh, he's left his coffee cup and briefcase on the hood of the Range Rover, and there they remain as he rolls away.
To the rescue comes the nice lady social worker from the Episcopal Church in her Ford.
She is urgently honking her horn, trying to get his attention, which he's ignoring because he's already on his phone talking to London. But finally, her unceasing
honk, 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 honk
gets the best of him. He throws his phone to the floor of the car, leans out the window, and displays a middle finger on his left hand. But the lady is focused on her rescue mission and honks on. I, in the meantime, driving close behind as a kind of third float in this little parade, likewise trying to get his attention with my awooga horn that I salvaged out of an old Model A. The combination of
honk, honk, honk,
awooga, awooga, finally gets his attention. He slams on his brakes, flings open the door, and tries to get out.
The first detaching seatbelt!
At the same time, his morning cup of coffee slides off the roof, bounces across the hood, and crashes onto the street, followed by his briefcase, which slides off the hood, scrapes across the paint with a fingernails on a chalkboard screech, and flops onto the street on top of the broken coffee cup. The dear lady,
mission accomplished,
coasts slowly around the scene of the accident, smiles, waves at her neighbor dangling from the clutches of his seatbelt, and sings out,
"Have a nice day."
And, no, she did not, as you might anticipate, run over the briefcase. No, she didn't. I did. You know, the nice lady social worker and I meant well. It's not always easy doing good. But later, when I told her about running over the briefcase, she grinned.
None of us is pure.
Did I run over the briefcase on purpose? I don't know. As I say, none of us is pure.
So it's February, and I'm at an appointment for a physical, and in the waiting room next to me is a nice-looking old couple, intelligent, well-dressed, tidy, clean, and suddenly the nice old man next to me nudges me and says,
"Hey, Merry Christmas."
It's February, right? So I'm sitting here in my February state of mind, and then he starts singing.
Oh, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm
all the way
telling
to the
you
end
why
of the song.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
And then says,
Hey, Merry Christmas.
So I say, Merry Christmas, back to him, and I'm thinking, could be me. Then the nurse comes, and he goes with her.
We've been married for 60 years, and Fred's 87 now, and, well, in our family, we say his wiring's coming a bit loose. You know, he's had a few strokes, a touch of Alzheimer's, and every once in a while, he just announces it's Christmas. The first time he did it, I thought I was crazy. I thought, this is the stupidest thing I ever heard, because I hear him yelling from upstairs one morning.
Hey, it's Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas. Let's go decorate the tree.
It was so strange. And so I call my daughters, and I tell them what's going on, and, well, they come over, and they bring presents with them, too. And they said to me,
"For God's sakes, Mother, it's not illegal."
Well, we had a very good time. And one of the best parts of the whole affair was when Fred said to me,
You know, I can't remember some of the things from when I was a child. Tell me about Christmas when I was a little boy.
well, he had a terrible childhood. His mother was a drunk, and his father ran off. He was virtually orphaned and had to leave home at a very, very young age. And I didn't want to tell him that. So I did something I never, ever thought I'd do 40 years with this man, 60 years with this man. I lied to him. I told him about the time he got a rocking horse, and the time he got a bicycle, and the time he was in a pageant. Oh, and he loved it. One of the best Christmases we ever had, even if it was July. And the strange thing, along bedtime that day, he forgot all about it. It just left his head, and we never did get to Christmas. It seemed that Christmas Eve and the good memories were enough. Until it happened all over again, and I hear him singing Christmas carols, and here comes Christmas down the stairs.
Merry Christmas!
And I thought, what harm? So this has happened 4 or 5 times now, in July, in October, twice in December, and now in February. And every time he wants me to tell him about his Christmases, and I do. I'm getting so good about lying about how good his Christmases used to be, I half believe it myself. And I call the girls each time just saying, Merry Christmas into the phone, and here they come. Oh, they sing carols, bring presents, bake cookies, the whole thing. Twice we've even gotten as far as putting up a Christmas tree. They love to do it.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way.
Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh!
And back comes Fred, and again, as if he's never seen me before, comes up to me and says,
Hey, Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas.
You know, the girls don't think of it as Christmas anymore. They think of it as Father's Day. And I kind of think of it as Valentine's Day. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
So scared to try new things. Am I prepared for you to be watching over me? And I am by myself. I'm not afraid anymore. And now that I don't need help, I'm ready to explore. To explore new things out in this world and ask the questions no one dares. Explore new places and see new faces. Share my talents to the world. Why was I so scared to go find my new passion? Am I prepared to go out and look for something? Once I found myself, That's what they say. I shall not succumb. You can stray from the path that was made for you. Live how you want. Go out and express and explore yourself. Discover where you belong.
A while back, I decided it was time to buy a cemetery plot. What an odd shopping experience. Popular wisdom says that the three most important things to consider in real estate decisions are location, location, and location. But I thought, it's a grave. What difference does a view really make? And resale value? Psh, not a problem. Well, I made my purchase, and from time to time I like to pay my respects at my final resting place. Visiting my own grave has always helped me untwist the snarls in my mind and soul, especially when I lose track of what's important. On a recent visit, I noticed that the neighboring property owners were James Edith Grimm and Jacob Pleasant. Being buried between Grimm and Pleasant has a poetic rightness about it, don't you think? Once, I went up, late at night, bringing my favorite blanket with me. I laid it down, stretched out, and I was startled. This grave has an incredible view, looking straight up. I could see starshine that was coming at me from millions of light years away. Trying to conceive the complexity and magnitude of space, I just sat there, looking into infinite darkness filled with all that light. You know, I never really liked the verse that says, "Dust thou art, and to dust thou shalt remain." We are energy, which is interchangeable with light. We are fire and water and earth, but we are also dreams, hopes, and fears held together by wisdom and pulled apart by folly. So much more than dust. The verse should instead say, "Miracle thou art, and to mystery thou shalt return." The light I see from my grave started traveling through space ages before I came into being. The stars, which are the source of that light, may have actually died out by now, gone. That is the scientific fact, yet somehow the light still shines on. My life gives off another kind of light. That light may shine on long after the source is gone.
Are there any questions?
What is the meaning of life?
Pardon me?
What is the meaning of life?
Are you kidding me?
Well, you never know. You might have the answer, and I would really hate to miss it because I was too socially inhibited to ask.
Once, and only once, I asked that question.
What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life?
What is the meaning of life? And I got a serious answer. An answer that is still with me to this day.
She is not mine, and she never will be.
Laughter gets you found.
Knock 'em dead, pig.
Hold on, Donnie. Hold on.
I sing. It's what I do.
Sometimes they will be mad at each other, and sometimes they will be in love with each other.
Merry Christmas.
Unbelievable courage.
None of us is pure.
Be aware of wonder.
The biggest, most important word, look.
I reflect the light.
Explore new things out in this world and ask the questions no one dares. Explore new places and see new faces. Share my talents to the world. Why was I so scared to go find my new passion? Am I prepared to go out and look for something? Once I found myself, I could go out and have some fun. Fight against what they say. I shall not succumb. You can stray from the path that was made for you.